Yo. 안녕하세요. 어떻게 지내요? Kicking off with the Ocho.
Salut.
你好，
Aí, galera!
Travel Tribe，欢迎来到 Travel Tribe。
Bem-vindo ao Travel
Et
Tribe!
bienvenue au podcast de Triple Trip.
Welcome to the Travel Tribe podcast. Welcome to Travel Tribe, where we invite some of the greatest adventurers out there to hear their stories of working, traveling, and studying abroad. Our guest today, Zahid Hussain, has done the trifecta and done all three. Born and raised in a small hut in the Himalayan mountains of Pakistan, he took a huge leap of faith and moved to Korea to pursue his studies. There, he transformed from being an ordinary expat to becoming a leader in the foreign community with his own followers and fans. Watching his transformation and rise throughout the years, I wanted to dissect what skills and qualities he has that allowed him to become so immersed and influential in Korean life as a foreigner, even working with well-respected top senior ministers and resulting in being named Honorary Citizen of Seoul and Honorary Ambassador of the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Outside of that, he has gone on to starting Korea's largest international grocery marketplace, Shejang.com. Today, we chat not only about his journey moving to the busy metropolis of Seoul, but also the rise of Korean culture across the world, including K-pop, K-beauty, and Korean food, as well as a personal story of mine, the one time I almost threw up at a Korean restaurant trying to eat hanjeo, a fermented skate. He'll also be discussing his work bridging cultural differences between Pakistan and Korea, and finally, his experiences starting a business in Seoul. It's a pleasure to welcome Zahid Hussain to the Travel Tribe.
I'm so glad to be on Jordan's show today, the Travel Tribe. You know, I was waiting to talk to this guy for such a long time, and finally I'm here with this amazing guy. He was an amazing guy when he was back in Seoul. You know, we had a great time together, and it's so good to be here with you today, buddy.
Thank you so much for the kind words, Zahid, but it's not about me today, it's about you. When I was first coming up with this idea of interviewing people across the world who are making a big impact as travelers or as expats, you were the first person I thought of because you honestly immerse yourself so much into the Korean culture. And while I was prepping this show and researching, I saw some of your pictures throughout the years, and it's been such a transition. You've gone from this expert to this gentleman over here who's got his unique glasses and his suit, and he's so involved.
Thank you very much. You're doing a great show. I was watching it. You know, you brought up some amazing people on your show, and it was really good to learn from them. And, you know, being a traveler myself, you know, travel to a new country and, you know, settling down and then like knowing other people who have similar stories, but different in some ways, you know, there are a lot of things to learn from. And, you know, your show is doing a great job, and, you know, I'm learning a lot of things. And today I'm finally lucky and very happy to be here. And thank you for having me here. And I hope today all viewers from all around the world, including Pakistan, the US, Korea, and all around the world, I'm sure they're going to have a good time. I hope they could learn just a single thing at least.
So let's dive into it. I'm excited to get started because there were so many things that I wanted to talk about. Bring us back to your childhood. What was life like in the Himalayas? I think we need to get a good understanding of how you grew up to give a perspective to people around the world. What was your childhood like?
My hometown is a very small town in the extreme north of Pakistan, in the Himalaya and Karakoram mountains. We have 3 mountain ranges, because you have a lot of travelers on Travel Tribe. Pakistani North is full of mountains. There are too many mountains, lot more mountains. If you add up all the mountains in China and Nepal, all the 6,000 meter above mountains, Pakistan will have more than both of those countries together. So that's where I belong to, and my hometown is very near to K2, the second highest mountain in the world. But I was born on on top of one of those mountains you see behind there. It was a small village called Karman, and my hometown is at a height of almost 4,000 meters from sea level. Mm-hmm. When you say 4,000 meters, man, the life is different over there. There's less oxygen, there's less pressure. The people who are living in those mountains, they're super, super nice, super simple, straightforward people, very hospitable. For us, like, we have a culture that we call guests are our blessings. So whenever somebody travel to our places, we treat them as like blessings. We think them as blessings. So we treat them very well, and we live in such a place which is kind of far from the cities, and you don't have a lot of good facilities in those parts of the world.
Okay, so you went from these humble dwellings, and you decided, hey, I want to do something bigger. I want to do something else. And so walk us through what made you decide on Korea, and how did you go through with that?
That's a really interesting story. Actually, yeah, I think that this story is one of the most important aspects of my life, I would say, because my life was totally changed in the sense that I found a new house, I found a new home, and a lot of new things opened up for me. I was growing up in that small town. My entire education till high school was in that small town. But luckily, I went to a good school, Cadet College Kardu, in my high school, and there we had this opportunity to learn about the world, about different countries, about different cultures and stuff. Then I started feeling like, oh wow, there are a lot more things than I expected in the world, And then I started thinking of little bigger things. I started thinking of little bigger things when I was in high school, and then after my high school, I looked for opportunities for university in Pakistan too. When I saw the university rankings and university environment and the level of learning that you can get from the universities, I found, less universities in Pakistan, unfortunately. But now we have really good universities in Pakistan too. But that time in 2006 and 2007, we had some good universities, but it was really competitive, and I was not that smart to get into those universities. Mm-hmm. Then I started looking for different other countries, and I found a scholarship in Italy, Malaysia, South Korea, and some other countries. Some of my friends went to Italy, but I was also making up my mind to go to Italy because we never heard about Korea at that time in Pakistan, especially in my hometown. We heard some few things, some home appliances that we used in the homes were from some Korean companies, and we knew it, like LG, Samsung, and these mm-hmm. companies. Italy was something that we were more familiar among the countries that were given scholarship at that time. And some of my high school friends made it to Italy. And I also got a scholarship in Italy. But at the same time, I also applied to a scholarship in Korea because I was thinking when I was a kid, I used to think we should always do something different from the public. We should, if there's a chance for you to do something differently, then I think there will be more doors for you. More opportunities for you. That's where I decided to Italy. I think a lot of people are going there. Italy, we know already about Italy a lot. We know pasta, spaghetti. We know movies from Italy, But Korea was something new, especially for people in my hometown. And that's where I saw the opportunity. Although I didn't know anything about Korean culture, I had no friends in Korea, but I took this as a good challenge for myself, and I said I will put myself in this challenge, and I will try to do something different from other people, and that's how I decided to come to Korea.
So you were literally just telling the same story of my progression to Korea as well. I was going to go teach. I wanted to start teaching, and I was going to go to Spain, but then I was like, hey, I want to go somewhere so different that I don't know anything about it. I mean, if I go and it's just terrible, they don't like me, I hate it. Everything is they just want me to leave. Then I just leave, and it's 1 year of my life. I learned a bit about Asia, but that was exactly the same thing. I was thinking, why don't I do something kind of different and open up my mind a little bit? And it led to this beautiful experience. Did you have any fears going to Korea?
Well, yeah, because, I belong to a very small town. As you see, I told you about my hometown, the way we were living there. And then all of a sudden I was going to a country which was very developed and very fast, and, like huge cities and stuff. And I was a little bit scared. And when I landed in Incheon for the first time, I was a little bit scared to see all those skyscrapers and the tall buildings and stuff there, because I had always seen mountains around my home, And then when I moved to the south, a southern part of Pakistan, I did see a lot of crowd and a lot of buildings, but this was different. So I was a little bit scared, oh my God, this is totally different. I don't know how would I survive here. And then I took a car that was sent by my university, and I slept in the car. When I woke up, I was in the mountains again. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm in the mountains. I'm in the mountains again because I was, I went to a university in Cheonan City, which was not Seoul. It is like 2 hours away from Seoul. And the university was literally in the mountain. There was nothing else. There was the school and there was the dormitory, and that's it, on top of a mountain. I was like so happy. Yeah, this is good, man. I'm back at the same place, and that's where I started. But then I got used to with this kind of new environment with time. And the biggest fear for me was food, because I belong to a Muslim country and we eat halal food, as you know. And I was a little bit scared that because I don't know the language, I don't know the culture, I don't know anybody here, and I don't know how to explain that I eat halal food and I need halal food. Otherwise, I can't eat anything. So that was a little bit of fear. And I did have some problems actually because of food in the beginning, because it was totally a countryside in Korea. It wasn't a big city, but the school was very cooperative. They tried to help me. There were some people who spoke English, and they kind of helped us, and we made through it. We made through it, man. Luckily.
How would you feel that Korea is towards the Muslim population in terms of being friendly towards food choices and stuff like that?
That's a really good question and a really big question for me. But this is a question that I talk about a lot. When I came in 2008, things were totally different. People didn't know what is halal food, and at that time, unfortunately, Muslims were, Muslims were connected to terrorism, and because in the news always bad things were shown about the Muslims, and people didn't want to know the Islamic culture, what is halal food, what is the style of life the Muslim people want. They weren't interested in these kind of things, and they were actually a little bit scared of these kind of things, because the media was making a very, very noisy image about the Muslims. So at that time it was a little bit hard. They didn't know about halal food, and there were many halal restaurants. There were not many grocery shops where you can buy halal meat and stuff like that. But with the passage of time, I've seen Korea growing really, really fast in terms of accepting cultures. You were here, Jordan. You knew that there were some troubles that foreigners face sometimes. But you see, after a couple of years, that after you left Korea, things are different. The good thing about Koreans is maybe it's an educated community, it's an educated nation. Thanks to King Sejong, he made the Korean language very easy for his people to get educated. Right? Hangul.
Yeah.
So this is one of the strongest aspects of Korean culture, Korea as a nation, that they are ready to learn. They're ready to learn from people who are doing better than them. They don't say oh, we don't need to learn from anybody. No, they always say we need to learn from other people. So they kind of learn from other countries who are doing better for multiculturalism, and especially from a Muslim's perspective. Things 10 years ago were totally different. As I said, there were not much restaurants. There were no grocery shops. But now, wherever you go in Korea, you will find halal restaurants. You will find halal grocery shops, and you will find the Korean government doing a lot to make Korea look like a Muslim-friendly country. And they did a lot of things, man. So I'm really happy. I'm really happy with all the developments that are happening in Korea.
This topic you bring about education, I think, is really interesting in Korea. I actually remember my brother came to visit me, my younger brother, and we went to go play park golf in Jamsil. And it's just a fun, a game. But we had the ajushis and ajumas coming over and being teaching us how to play. And we're just having fun. But you're right. Every single opportunity is a chance for them to learn. Because my brother was why are they we don't know this guy, but he just wanted them to get better at park golf, and
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
Cool. And I can't agree with you anymore. I mean, I haven't been in Korea for the last 3-4 years, but even when I was leaving, it was very multicultural. Each week I would try to go to a new restaurant, and there's some great, fantastic food from all over the world. Nepalese food, African food, Morocco, of course, Casablanca over there. We have great multicultural food in Korea, and it's becoming more and more this melting pot. So
True.
I wanted to also now get into, how did you get so immersed into Korean culture? I mean, there are so many other students that come to Korea. There are so many expats and teachers, but you really kind of just dove in and, I mean, really immersed yourself. What was the inspiration for this?
As I said, like I thought Korea, I took Korea as an opportunity to learn new things, and the most important thing that I wanted to learn about was a different culture and a different language. I had a lot of friends who used to say like, "Oh, I wouldn't go to Korea because the program that I came, it was a global Korea scholarship program that is done by the Korean Ministry of Education, and in that program we have to learn Korean for 1 year, and many people would say like, oh, I wouldn't waste my time, 1 year time, to learn the language, and then my school will be delayed by 1 year, and I don't want to graduate a year later than I was planning to. Some people think like that, but I thought like, oh no, I think learning a new language is going to be a big tool for me wherever I go in my life. Like even like if I go back to Pakistan after learning the language, I think I will have a lot of better opportunities than people in Pakistan, because I have something new that many people don't have. So I wanted to learn the language and I wanted to learn the culture. So that was my initial actually the plan that for which I came to Korea. And after coming to Korea, man, like as I said, like in the beginning I had a hard time, but then as I spent time here, I found Korea to be a place where not I not only have the opportunity to learn Korean culture and Korean language, but compared to Pakistan, compared to my hometown, although we have tourists from all over the world, but compared to that, in Korea I had people from all over the world. So I was like, oh, this is the place where I really needed to be, because I can meet people from all over the world. At the first time when I came to Korea, I went to a good school, high school. I'm not showing it off, but like I'm telling you the fact that I went to a good high school and my English wasn't that bad back home when I was in Pakistan. And English is the official language of Pakistan, but we still have an accent. But when I came to Korea with that accent, I spoke English to my colleagues and my teachers, and they wouldn't understand me much. Why? Because my accent is different. The Koreans are very only familiar with the American accent. And, at that time I had this in my mind, like, oh, I have to learn English again too. So I started like, Korea, there wouldn't be any better place for me to learn English also, and at the same time Korean and Korean culture than Korea. Because in Korea, there are a lot of foreigners, especially a lot of teachers and soldiers from America. We used to play football together. Like we had people from all over the world. You see, like we had a football team. We played together in Seoul Storms, Phoenix. We had people like one time in Phoenix, we had people from 17 different countries. A great melting pot here. So this is where I started like, oh, Korea, this is the place where I need to be. And then like, because Korea has a unique culture, they have a unique language, and English is not very much used in here. So I learned English with my friends. And at the same time, I said like, okay, because I want to learn, I want to know Korea from the depth. I want to learn Korean culture from the depths. So I have to study the language really hard. So that's where I decided to learn the language really hard and learn the culture really hard. The reason why I made a difference than other foreigners was because I not only learned the culture, but I respected it from the depth of my heart. I respected the culture because we learned this from when we are young in Pakistan, in the Himalayas especially, that you should always accept the differences and respect them and respect new things in your life. So this was what I learned back home. And then when I came here, like, I started respecting the culture more than learning the culture. I started respecting it, and I started taking it as not something to only learn, but to feel it in my body, to get everything in my body. And that's what I was feeling. So when Koreans started like meeting me, talking to me, like, and when I started meeting them and talking to them, they kind of felt like, oh, this guy really really loves our culture and really respects our culture. So they would like talk to me more and help me more, and that gave me like this opportunity to learn the culture from the people, not only in university but from the local people in the streets, in the buses. I used to do this. Is a tip for anybody who learning a language. This is a tip that I used in my life. When you learn a new language, don't just learn from the school, because in the school you will learn an academic language, you will learn from the teacher, only one person you will be learning from. But I think a language should be learned from different age groups. So you should learn from kids, you should learn from your age people, you should learn from younger people, you should learn from older people, you should learn from anybody. So I had friends in university where I used to practice the Korean language, and I wanted to also practice with old ajumas and ajoshis, but I don't have that. Like, I don't have them around because I don't know anybody. So what I used to do when I take a bus or a subway in Korea, in Seoul, when I came to Seoul, I used to see where an ajuma or ajoshi is sitting. And then and then if they have a vacant seat next to them, I would go sit down, take it easy for a bit, and then when they feel relaxed, because like long time ago, people were like, they feel a little bit shy when a foreigner sits next to them, because they think that we don't speak Korean and they don't speak English, so they're kind of like shy. If we ask something, they're kind of shy. So we just sit down, make them feel relaxed, and then say like 안녕하세요, 어디 가세요, something like that. Where are you going? I'm a new person in Korea. And then 10 years ago, now it's different. Now there are a lot of foreigners who speak really good Korean. But 10 years ago, there were not many foreigners who would speak Korean. So when you speak to the old ajumas and ajoshis, they will be like, oh my God, this is so cute, a foreigner speaking Korean, and they would be so happy. And they would talk to you more. And this is how I started learning from the old group people, right? So, I tried to learn from different age groups and different sort of people from different backgrounds, playing football and speak Korean, go to school, speak Korean, go to parties and have fun and speak Korean, and play field hockey, speak Korean, these kind of things, like different kind of people. So that's how I think I picked up the language kind of better than most of the people who only go to school and try to study Korean. And the culture, as I said, I fell in love with the culture as I started learning the language. And when I went into the depth of the language, I started reaching the depth of the culture too, because language is a part of culture. And when you learn language, you learn culture in parallel. So when I started learning more details of the culture, it's a beautiful culture, man. Like, that love, I think, gave me a strength and power to go more and more and more. And that's how I made it here to the place where I am today.
That's really great. And I think people can really realize your love for the Korean culture. And I also kind of really enjoyed it. And it was eye-opening for me when I went there. Like, simple things that, I don't know, for anyone from America, we're very used to individualism. So, for example, you're going to Fridays or some restaurant, you order food, you're all ordering by yourself. It's like, oh, what are you getting? Oh, I'm getting this. Like, don't touch it. This is my zone, right?
Yeah.
You're like, my first meal, and they're like, all right, what are we getting? Like, oh, like, I want jamshu, I want this, I want that. And all of a sudden, it's like we're eating together. And this beautiful, like, community culture is something that I was not used to in the beginning. And I remember going back home, and I remember my brother had like a Twix bar, and he opened and started eating. And I'm like, dude, why aren't you asking if I want some? Because it's such it's a community-based, always about everybody sharing and being together. And it is very beautiful.
Right. Now you brought up the food, the way I didn't have a lot of food in Korea to eat because of the halal problem. So in the beginning, the way I got used to with Korean food, and I started loving the Korean food, was this could be again a tip to a lot of people who go to new places, who travel to new places. It's hard for you to survive in a different culture which you never heard about before, and even if you heard, you never tried the food, different kinds of food, and you're used to with the one type of food or one type of food in your country. Like, I started with finding similar food in Korea that I have back home in Pakistan. So that kind of made it easy for me. Like, oh, so samgyetang, you might love samgyetang, right? You love samgyetang, the chicken soup, that we eat when we get sick and stuff. we have some similar food back home in Pakistan, like a soup, which is very similar to samgyetang, and that's how I kind of like found out that samgyetang is it is very similar to one of the dishes back home, and that's where I started eating samgyetang, and it was so good. And then when I started samgyetang, I started trying some kimchi and trying something else, side dish and stuff, and that kind of like built it up, and then I found some new food which pretty were similar to the food that we have back home, and that's how I built the appetite of myself for the Korean food. And then I started like trying all the different kind of food in Korea, and Korean food is like very diverse, and it's really healthy. So yeah, I started loving the food too.
Yeah, good. We have a question here from Lifetime Travel Mates. It says, what's your favorite and least favorite Korean food?
So I cannot say one favorite food because I have three favorite foods. I never could decide which one is the best. But it's like when I say it to Koreans, they kind of laugh because the kind of food that I like, only old ajoshis and ajumas eat them most of the time. I don't know why. Like I love those kind of food. So the first most delicious food for me in Korean food culture is samgyetang. And parallel is chuotang. It's again a type of soup, but a seafood soup. Chuotang and kongnamulkukpap. Kongnamulkukpap is like a long, like the long vegetables with rice and egg and in a kind of like soup together. So these three dishes are my favorite dishes in Korean food. But the worst, I wouldn't say the worst. I would say maybe the least favorite was a kind of fish, man. I forgot the name, but it smells like ammonium.
It's fermented.
Seriously.
It's fermented stingray.
Exactly. Yeah, man. That's what I tried it once, and man, I couldn't I couldn't stand that food. It smells so weird. A lot of people like it, but I couldn't stand with that food.
I talked about this on another show we had, and I had a friend visiting me in Korea. We actually went to the seafood market over there, where you can buy raw seafood in the bottom. So you go in and like go ahead and negotiate with the ajumas, and they're like, oh, they're getting so into it. And so we had we put like 40,000 won. We're like, all right, we're gonna get what we can get. And they were like, let's try something different, something unique. And we go to the ajuma, and we see this weird creature, and she's like, we're like, we'll take that. And she's like, let's just smell it, and it just smelled terrible. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, no, let's get it, let's try it. And I thought they were gonna cook it. Like I thought they were gonna bake it or cook it. And we go upstairs to the restaurant where they start cooking it. And everything else comes like the shrimp, the fish come all like, in soups or grilled. And all of a sudden this thing comes back again raw. And I'm like, am I supposed to eat this? And the guy's like, oh, kunchaneyo. And so we go and toast. And literally within seconds, it's just like we're both red and heaving because it's like ammonia. So you have to that comes out. And the Koreans next to us are laughing. They're like, dude, who are these clowns, right? And man,
yeah, that
is really the worst food I have ever had in my life, just because I like trying new things, but I almost threw up from trying to eat that fermented stingray. I'm living in Europe now, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier about the rise of Korea. And I mean, Korean culture is really starting to kind of permeate around the world. I mean, we got K-pop. There's so many Korean restaurants here in Europe. I mean, Korean culture and Korean beauty products. I mean, Korean Baseball League now is on ESPN. I mean, Korea has really just like, it has gone from this obscure country that no one really knew about when I was there. And now it's just kind of like, I feel like filtering everywhere.
I lived in Korea for 12 years, and I learned a few things about Korean people and their mentality. Koreans would always say, whatever they start, they want to be number one. Mm-hmm. This is something that you will find in everything, like, whatever they start. When you talk about Korean culture now becoming a global, global thing all over the world, is like they started investing in culture in the 1990s. They started this long time ago. I met some policy makers in Korea, like some ministers and stuff, people like that. They would tell me like, long time ago, like countries would be measured or like, they would be calculated in terms of how strong their army is, how strong their economy is, and, stuff like that. But now, people in the modern age, when the world has become a global village, everybody knows each other, everybody's connected. Now you cannot, like, just stay within yourself. You have to grow, you have to open up everything. In this kind of world, the thing that would make a difference would be how beautiful your culture is, how accepting you are for other cultures, how much respect you give to people from different parts of the world and different cultures. This was the mentality they started growing up with from the 1990s, and they invested a lot in K-pop. They invested a lot in K-drama, K-beauty, like K-movies. Now, after Parasite winning the Oscars, like, even the movie industry has grown so fast. And like I think, like, the main reason behind all these kind of things, all these promotions, all these developments that Korea is making, is they are really hardworking people. I see them, like, working day and night. Like, you might have seen them. They would work from morning to evening at work, and then they go drinking shake and drink till 2 a.m. and then they go home totally drunk, and then 7 a.m. they're back in the offices.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, this is something we cannot do.
Yeah.
But they do it, like, maybe because of the historical background they had, like, after Japan colonizing it, and the North Korea attacking South Korea, and this kind of background they had. And then I think these tough times made them really strong and made them, like, hardworking people. And that's why now they're, like, opening up for new things, man. Like K-beauty, K-food, K-culture, K-drama, K-movies, even K-sports now, as you said, like baseball, even like soccer. They play really nice soccer. We play together, like how fast they are and how organized they play. They give like 110% of in whatever they start with. So that's like why they're growing up all around, man.
Yeah, that this whole Bali culture of working really quickly, of working super hard. And I remember it's a double-edged sword, though, because you do get a lot of great progress from it, but you also can get burnt out from it. And I remember kind of getting burnt out from this working aspect when I was in Korea. I mean, I was working all the time. And I visited my grandma in the countryside in Europe, and I came back and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna get into this Bali quick work culture when I get back to Korea. And all of a sudden, I remember the bus is there, and I'm like, oh, I gotta catch that bus. And then all of a sudden, I was like, boom, I'm back to Korean Bali culture. I'm gonna work, and I'm gonna go to this, and I gotta go to 7-Eleven, get a quick meal. And it's Koreans do work really, really hard.
As you mentioned about the negative aspect of the Pali culture and working really hard, working too much, only work and no life. There's no work and life balance. I see this even as a positive thing because Korea had a really tough background. Countries like, for example, countries like America, Europe, they have long history and they've been there for a long time. So the work culture, the style of working is a little bit different. But countries like Korea, they did have a long history, but after the colonization and after the Korean War, it's a really short history. And till now, they even if they want to keep a work and life balance, they couldn't do it because they wanted to build their country really strong and really good. So they had to work really. They had nothing else than working hard because they don't have any resource. They don't have any oil, they don't have any gas, nothing like that. They build a country with hard work. They build a country with education. Their only resource is education, and their only another resource we could say is hard work. So now they built this country, and now the country is doing fine. And now the government is changing policies, bringing work and life balance. Focusing more on family life. Don't work after 6 p.m. Now the government fines companies if they make people work after 6 p.m. So things are changing. I mean, it took them some time, but now things are changing. So I'm very positive about it. I
remember hearing one of my classes that like the GDP of Korea right after the Korean War was similar to that of Congo. So they were a very poor country during that time period, and they really got after it. And they had that Han River economic miracle where they just really built up this economic system that most people didn't think would ever happen. And that is so
Exactly.
important in the culture. I was teaching actually business students when I was in Korea, actually in Seoul. And I had a couple of students that went to go do a gap year or internship in Spain. And, in Spain is so different, where they have the, oh my gosh, what they call the naps during the daytime. And, they come back and they're like, why can't we have that here? They're like, why is it so different? Like, I want to go to Spain. And, it's so difficult to change a culture that's been so ingrained, even if they wanted to, it's so challenging to change.
Exactly.
But, slowly but surely, I know that a lot of these issues were brought up to the government, and government's taking proactive action. But I want to bring us back to you. So let's go ahead and get back to you, and you telling me you're studying in Korea. You just told us how much you love the culture and how much you really respect it, and you're learning the language. What was the next step in your Korean adventure?
I ended up in Korea University after studying Korean language for a year in Cheonan, the first place where I went to. And when I was in Cheonan, I traveled to Seoul, and at that time I got really a little bit used to with the cities, because I used to travel within Cheonan and go to the city and see things and shop around and just have some fun with friends from different countries. And then we started traveling as tourists. So we came to Seoul as tourists. Mm-hmm. And I started like seeing new world. It was a new world for me, like coming from the mountains, and I seeing like all these skyscrapers. It was a little bit scary in the beginning, but then like it was a different world, and there was so much life in Seoul. Like, you lived here, about Seoul. Like, Seoul never sleeps. I mean, there's something happening all, like, somewhere at even 4 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever time you go anywhere, there is something happening. So there was so much life in the city, and like everybody was so busy and having fun, working, whatever you want to do, you could do in the city. And that kind of like attracted me, like, oh, this is a fine place to be at. And then I applied for Korea University, and after language, I came to Seoul. I got into one of the good schools, they call the Sky universities. I went to Korea University, and I did my electrical engineering in Korea University. While I was doing electrical engineering in Korea University, I participated in a lot of community activities, because I want to learn more than what the school teaches. I wanted, because I had this future dream that I wanna do something bigger than myself. So I just for that dream and that plan in my head, I want to learn a lot of things. So did some activities out of the school. We used to go volunteering at the senior citizen centers, and like orphanages, and play football with the guys on weekend, and then all of the guys go together and do something for the society and give it back to the society and stuff. So we used to spend time like that. And then I started doing some student organizations. When I came to Korea for the first time, people didn't know much about Pakistan. People, as I said, like, overall Islamic countries were not having a very good image in Korea. And me coming from one of the safest places on earth, Jordan, in my hometown, we don't close doors. We don't lock doors, because the crime rate is 0. Nobody goes in your house and steals something. But when I came here and I said I'm from Pakistan, people will be like, oh, is there terrorism? Are they still fighting or something like that? I was like kind of sad. It was a little bit sad for me. And then I had this plan in my head, and then some of my friends, my seniors from Pakistan, we ganged up together, and in 2010 we decided to make a student organization, because students could promote the culture in a right way, in an academic way, in a more polite way. Students they study about other cultures too. They study about the Korean culture, and then they know about the Korean culture, and you would promote your culture in a way that Korean people would want to hear from you. Mm-hmm. So that's why we decided to, like, okay, let's make a student organization. So we made Pakistan Student Association in 2010, and at that time we had like 300 students in Korea from Pakistan. But now, like, and then we made that student association to also let young people in Pakistan know that, hey, Korea has a really good education system, and they have really good universities. Because back home in Pakistan, whenever you think, as I said, like, people would go to Italy, America, Europe, UK, like all these places which are famous, Australia, but they would never think of China, Korea, Japan. So we started like promoting Korean education, Korean universities, the scholarships and everything. And then a lot of students in Pakistan started applying, and we kind of guide them for free. Like, hey, apply, there's a scholarship, you apply like this. And today, for like our student organization in Korea, we started with 300, and now we have almost 3,000 students in Korea. So we help the society, we help the community back home, bringing a lot of people on scholarships. And at the same time, we kind of like built a group, and we ganged up together as a team. And then we started learning about Korean culture. I always requested Pakistani friends to not only just study what you study at school, come out, go to the society, meet the Korean people, learn a lot of things from them. Because when you go back to Pakistan, even when you go back to Pakistan, if you go only with a degree, you will be no different with anybody else in Pakistan, because he has a degree too. Mm-hmm. Right? He graduated from electrical engineering in Pakistan. You might have graduated in electrical engineering in Korea. Maybe there's only a difference that, oh, you graduated from a different country. But if you learn the culture, if you learn new things that a student in Pakistan cannot learn, that's where you can make a difference. And that's where you go back and you kind of like contribute in your country, and you help your country to grow as well, you know, with the new things that you learn. So that's where we started like bringing people out of their schools and, you know, like getting immersed with the Korean culture. A lot of Pakistani students did really good job, and they learned a lot of good things in Korea. And now they went back. A lot of my friends are working as professors, you know, lecturers in universities back home after doing PhD or masters and PhD in Korea. And they're doing really good job. And I feel so happy, you know, we all feel so happy that these guys learn a lot of good things. And now Pakistan is also learning with those, like the new generation is learning from those people. So this is how like we started. So, and then we introduced Pakistani culture. Korean people started knowing about Pakistani culture. Oh, Pakistan. Because you see, like I said, like I feel so bad when people thought me as a bad guy or as a dangerous guy. When I came to like a place where we never fight. We don't have this concept of fighting and stuff like that, especially in the mountains. So this is like, you know, one of the things that I did when I was doing school. And another thing that I did was like not only promoting Pakistan, but I wanted to promote Korean culture in Pakistan too. So one thing we did was like the Pakistani student, we made the Pakistani students learn as much as possible in Korea, and you know, meet the Korean people, learn from them and respect them and stuff. And at the same time, I wanted to contribute in Korea too. So I did like Seoul International Students Forum in 2012. I was actually the president of Seoul International Students Forum. The Seoul government mayor nominated me as the president. We had 100 students from all over the world, really good students who were studying in Korea. We worked for 6 months, and the topic and the things that we worked on were like we did research. How can Seoul be a more foreigner-friendly city? Mm-hmm. You know, not only like Pakistanis, not only Muslims, not only Americans, not only Europeans, but people from every different part of the world. So in those 100 students, we had people from all over the world. So we thought about like, how could it be good for this community? How could Seoul be a good place for that community? So we did, and we made 6 proposals, and we gave it to the Seoul City mayor. We presented the Seoul City mayor, and they kind of applied it. Today, I see some of those things happening in Korea, you know, and, you know, which is really good for foreigners, because they are having a way better life, a way more friendly life in Korea. That was one of the things that I did. And then we did sports. I see everything as an opportunity to learn. You know, I met great people like you, Jordan, people from all over the world, like amazing people, man. You know, doing all that kind of thing. And then I graduated and I got a job in Korea, and then I started working for a Korean company. What I did in that Korean company was I kind of like, you know, because I wanted to contribute in Pakistan too. Mm-hmm. So I took this company to Pakistan, because Pakistan needs foreign investment, and there are a lot of development projects that needs to be done in Pakistan. So I took this Korean company to Pakistan, and we did a big project in Pakistan for power, because Pakistan has power shortage and energy problems. So, and then I ended up on TV. The reason why I ended up on TV was not because I wanted to be a celebrity, but the same thing, like, you know, I wanted to introduce Pakistan and my culture to the Korean masses, like more people, not only universities. With the student organization, we were introducing Pakistani culture and the Muslim culture to the students and doing events together. But I wanted to reach a bigger target, a bigger number of people. So that's where I started looking for opportunities in media, and I luckily got a show on Arirang TV, and that's where I started doing TV shows.
So it seems like you were really, you were very motivated and passionate about sharing your culture and sharing other cultures, and bringing people together. Is there like a future vision you have for this, or is this like a constant day battle of like, hey, how can I bring people together every day?
Well, I definitely have a future plan, because I came from a place where still a lot of things need to be done, and I live in a place where a lot of things are going really great. As you said, like Korea is now a global phenomena, so there are a lot of things you can learn from Korea, and then you can take them back home and then apply them in your country, apply them in your home. So I have a future plan that I want to be a politician in my late 40s or early 50s back home in Pakistan. So all these kind of things I'm doing is like just to learn as much as possible, learn how you respect different cultures, learn how you connect with people from different cultures, learn how you bridge them together, not only culturally but economically, with sports, food, whatever you can connect. You can connect yourself with them, or you can connect different people. So now, like I'm in close contact with the K-pop fans in Pakistan, and I always try to like encourage them, like, because K-pop is something new in Pakistan and it's growing so fast, and I encourage them like, oh, you guys keep it up, one day BTS will come to Pakistan. Although it's hard, but I keep them encouraging, like, hey, why not? Because the thing is, like, when you create a lot of fandom for Korean culture in Pakistan, later when I want to do something between Korea and Pakistan, I think these people will be a great resource for me. Great, like, like we would work as a team together. So that's my future plan, and based on that future plan, I'm trying to learn as much as possible. I got a lot of wrinkles, man, and these wrinkles are not because I'm old. These wrinkles are experience, and these wrinkles are experience of learning. I'm proud of them, but like, trying to learn as much as possible.
I see you've adapted the Korean culture. You've sponged it in that learning and education is the most important thing at all costs. It doesn't matter.
True. That's really true. Yesterday, I met the Minister of Justice in Korea. And not only me, but like a group of people, a group of foreigners who will be working as mentors for the Ministry of Justice. And I said one thing over there that I directly said it to the minister, like, this is first time that we're sitting with people from the Ministry of Justice. I was always scared of you guys, and this is so different. Like, I was always, because whenever we go to the immigration for extending the visa, we're always stressed, like, oh, I don't know what kind of person we'll face today, and I don't know if they will cancel my visa, or I don't know if I missed a document and I have to wait for the entire day. And so I felt like it was really scary, and we used to be stressed. But now, the minister herself is sitting on one table with some random foreigners. Like, we're nothing. We're just here as foreigners learning and, doing our things. But she was there with us, man.
It's funny you talking about going to the immigration office. Reminds me of the time that I went to the immigration office to get my visa extended, and all of a sudden they're like, you owe $300. I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, you changed your address. You changed your address and you didn't tell us about it. And I was like, wow, what? And then they're like, I was like, this is crazy. I want to talk to a manager. How am I going to pay $300 for, like, this is ridiculous. Like, why? And then she pulls out this handbook. It's huge. It's like the size of this map.
Oh my God.
All writing. And she's like, it is your duty as an expat here to read all the rules and regulations. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then she like offered me like a 10% discount. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna pay a discount on my fine. If I'm gonna pay, I'm gonna pay it right. So
yeah, she was an amazing lady.
Yeah. So you are in school then, and then so where does this catalyst of you kind of getting immersed into TV and getting in more involved in terms of doing this diplomatic work? Where is that catalyst? Where does that start from? So
as I said, I felt really bad when I saw that people didn't know much about Pakistan, and people didn't know much about my culture, and people were associating me and a lot other people from Pakistan with something that we totally not related to, like of course we had some issues like terrorism issues because of some global major crisis. Like we had 9/11, and then after 9/11 we had US and Afghan war, and because we touched borders with Afghanistan, so there is no way that you don't feel the effect of a war happening right next to your door. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, we had these kind of unlucky things. And before the Afghan war, there was the Soviet war with Afghanistan a long time ago in the 1980s, after the Cold War. So the Soviets attacked Afghanistan, and then at that time, the US and Pakistan kind of like helped Afghanistan to defend themselves from the Soviets. So, all these kind of major issues around there kind of like affected the country, unfortunately. And actually, so when people say that there's Pakistanis are terrorists and there are a lot of Pakistanis who are doing terrorism and stuff, we are unfortunately the country that lost the biggest number of people in this war against terrorism. Mm-hmm. We lost like almost 70,000 people. So it was really sad for a person from Pakistan. I even lost some friends who went to the army in this war on terror, like because of the war on terror along the borders with Afghanistan. In that locality, like I kind of, some of my friends got affected, like they got like wounded in that thing. So I felt really bad when I heard like people associating us with, like, the taxi drivers in Korea. When you take a taxi, they will ask like, oh, where are you from? And then if you say, oh, I'm from America, oh, hi, hello, hey, blah, blah, something like that. And then when you say like, oh, I'm from Pakistan, like they would do like, oh, you're from a country, like this kind of sign. So it made me feel like really sick. Like, why would you do that? Like, so this was the thing that built kind of like an appetite in me to make a difference, to let people know what we really are and what we really stand for and stuff. This was the main thing actually for me to go into media. And as I said, I got a show in Arirang TV, and that show was called Bring It On. You can go to YouTube and watch it, like Arirang TV Bring It On. And that show was the show where people from different countries would come, and they would present about their culture, their country, different aspects of their country. And it was a competition between different countries. And we were 18 countries in that show. That was my first show in Korea on TV, and I was representing Pakistan. And the topic that I discussed there was the Himalayas. I talked about polo. I talked about Pakistani traditional music, qawwali, and some other things like that. And then I fortunately won the entire show. I was the champion of that show out of 18 countries. And that gave me a little bit of confidence that although people don't know about my country, but the thing is, if I present it in the right way, if I present it in a nice way, the way you are, I think people are going to like it. So this gave me a confidence in me. And then I started like looking for even bigger, because that show was in English. And my main target was not like a global audience. My main target was the Korean audience, because I'm here. I need to contribute here. I expect the same from a Pakistani who is living in the US. I expect the same from a Pakistani who is living somewhere else to do in their communities. You cannot promote your culture unless you don't respect and accept the host culture. If you're in America, you have to accept the American culture. You have to respect the American culture and values. That's where people will start listening to you. That's what I did. I kind of like put myself in the Korean culture. I respected it so much. I loved it. I respect it from my heart, not just to live in Korea, but because it's a great thing to learn something new, and we should respect each other. We should respect different cultures all the time. So that's where Koreans started like, oh, this guy loves my culture. I want to learn about his culture too. This kind of feeling, like give and take, and then like respect each other. Mutual. It should be always mutual, not one-sided. So then there was a big show happening in Korea, one of the top 5 shows, the non-summit, where foreigners would sit. It's called PyeongChang Olympics in Korea, where a group of foreigners will sit and they will talk, like they will suit it up and talk about like politics, culture, different things, like different issues. And then that show, somebody recommended me to that show, one of my friends, and then they called me and they said like, hey, we want to have an interview with you because we have a show and blah blah blah. So after this show, I kind of like popped up in the media world. So they contacted me, I was the interview, and they kind of liked it. And within a month, I was on another show, and that show, I did that show for almost 2 years, and it was in Korean. Believe me, like, you know, I always say that Koreans are always ready to learn, and they're always ready to respect after they learn. You know, they didn't know about Pakistan, but when I went to that show, millions of people were watching that show, and we were speaking Korean. And after that show, like, you know, people totally changed their mind about Pakistan, about Pakistani culture. They started traveling. A lot of people would go to the embassy for getting a visa to Pakistan, and then the embassy would call me, hey, Zahid, there are people here in the embassy to get a visa for Pakistan. And we asked them like, why you want to go to Pakistan? They were telling us that they watched your show and they want to go to Pakistan.
Wow.
So this was that was really amazing. Like, Koreans were so ready to accept the facts from a person. Like, they would prefer a person belonging to that particular part of the world than the things they listen from the news. So I was so happy, and this gave me more confidence to like keep it going on. And then I kept it up, and I went to different shows, and then I started talking about the Islamic culture, because that's again a big topic that was needed to be introduced in Korea, halal food. And then the Korean government took me as an ambassador for the Korea Tourism Organization, because they wanted to promote Korean tourism in the Muslim countries. And I would go to the Korean government, and I would lecture them on what halal food is, how you made it, how you differentiate from other food, what kind of food. You know, in Korea, when you say halal food, they would be like, oh, there's no halal food in Korea. They would think like halal food is something, you know, coming from the skies, or it's something that that is something different. Korean food, already more than 50% of Korean food are halal, but Koreans don't know it. Like, Muslims don't know it. Koreans don't know it. This is the thing that I want people to know, that as far as there's no meat, as far as there's no alcohol, it is halal. And there are a lot of food in Korea which doesn't have meat, so it is halal. So these were the things that I started to tell the Korean government, and they kind of like started making like, you know, Muslim friendly restaurants, pork free restaurants, halal restaurants, and they kind of like started sponsoring these kind of businesses in Korea to make Korea a more Muslim friendly country now too. So, you know, this is amazing. After we went to these TV shows and talked about the culture, people started accepting it and respecting it. And that's where Korean government started changing policies also to make it more Muslim friendly and more multicultural. You know, as I always say, the world is now nomadic. You know, a long time ago, we used to be nomads. Like, you stay at one place, and then when the food is over, you go to another mountain where there's some food left for your animals, and then you stay there for a month. This is the same now, you know. You go to America, there's a good school, you study there, and then you go to the UK because there's something good there, and then you go to Korea because there's a teaching environment, there's a teaching job, and you want to learn the new culture. Then you go to Pakistan because there are a lot of mountains to go, beautiful mountains. So this is like, we keep moving now. Like, the world is now a global village. So now Korea is, you know, trying to catch with that flow of the world, and they're doing a really good job. And this is where, like, after I went to media, these things started happening, and this kept me involved in the entire process as it flows.
Absolutely. Yeah. And kind of the whole show started right here is to kind of highlight that nomadic lifestyle that we're living, that there are job opportunities abroad, there are educational opportunities in Korea, there is to work in Australia, that, you know, we are, you know, as you said a while back, we had nomadic culture. And so I think it's coming back now, especially with the advent of the internet. Of course, this pandemic has kind of disrupted everything. But we were on that path to kind of creating more and more of this nomadic lifestyle. So you're telling me kind of how you're getting involved here with the TV shows and in media. And I saw you kind of have a pretty big following over there on Instagram. So how did you become honorary ambassador of the Olympics in PyeongChang in 2018?
It was a really funny story. Like when the Olympics was being planned, and like, you know, they were working on like doing all the final preparations for the Olympics, and people in different countries were thinking that it is because, you know, it was PyeongChang Olympic, but people were thinking it's North Korea because PyeongChang sounds like Pyongyang.
Yeah, Pyongyang.
Yeah, the capital of North Korea. So a lot of people in different countries were thinking that, oh, the Olympics is happening in North Korea, and South Koreans were really, 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 worried about this, because like people would not come, because the North Korean image is not very good, unfortunately, around the world. So people would not come, and plus, their image is not being promoted. Like they're putting a lot of efforts in the Olympics, but then people don't know that this is being happened in South Korea. So I think they came up with this idea that I think we should involve a lot of foreign influencers to get the word to their countries and let people hear about it. And then at that time, fortunately, we were, like, some of my friends and I were doing TV shows, and we were very active in the Korean community, doing like kind of like helping the Korean society to get promoted in different countries. And then the entertainment agency that I was a part of, they also kind of like recommended that, like, if you do these people, if they promote the Olympics, it would be better. It would be a good help for the Korean government. And then, of course, I had done some projects with the government too already. So they kind of like, yeah, they were happy to take us on board to make this happen. And I somehow contributed in promoting this in Pakistan. Because we had some athletes coming from Pakistan too, and so I kind of like promoted this in Pakistan, and a lot of people from Pakistan watched it online, or some people even came to Korea. So yeah, this was the help that I little bit contributed in the Olympics, and that's how I made it up there. Yeah,
that's really cool. And we have a couple of photos of you over there with PyeongChang here. What are you holding over here?
Oh, that's the Olympic lamp. That's the Olympic lamp. When when it goes to the country where the Olympics is being played, the president of the country, or some people, some sort of people like that, they would receive this from the Olympics International Olympic Committee, and then this lamp goes to all different cities of that country. And then like some government people or some sort of public people would take this lamp and go to different cities. And I got this amazing opportunity to go to one of the small cities in the countryside in Korea, to take this lamp and tell them that the Olympics is being happening, so you should come watch in PyeongChang, and stuff like that. So we had a parade, and I was leading the parade in one of the cities with one of my friends from America. He's also doing TV shows and radios in Korea, an amazing guy from America. So we did in one city together, and that was the Olympic lamp that I took. That was the official Olympic lamp. I was like, damn, this is the official lamp, And being a sportsman, like we played football, I play a field hockey in Korea, and so for me it was like amazing. Like I'm doing something big in the sports thing, But again, like it was just to help the Olympics.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then how did that lead to getting also nominated as the Honorary Citizen of Seoul?
I lived in Seoul for quite a long time, and I was trying to contribute in the growth of the city. As I told you the story that we made 6 proposals for Seoul government when I was a student in 2012. 100 students from different countries. We made 6 proposals, and we presented it to the mayor of Seoul, and he really liked them. And so that was one project I did for the Seoul government, and I did some volunteerings in the Seoul in Seoul with the Seoul government. And I actually, with some of my friends, I also made I cannot say I, but a group of people and I, like together, we made the first foreigners field hockey team in Korea in 2014, because people who loved expats, Korea want expats to have a good life in Korea. So people like you and me, we loved soccer, so we used to play soccer on the weekends, and we enjoyed life in Korea. But some people playing like basketball, they were enjoying football and baseball. They were having facilities to enjoy their life. But the people who play field hockey, ice hockey, there was ice hockey in Korea, but the people who play field hockey, they didn't have this thing. There was nothing happening for foreigners, for expats to play field hockey. And then we worked really hard, and then we made the first field hockey international team in Yongsan.
Wow.
We called it Yongsan Tigers, and not Yongsan Tigers, Namsan Tigers. So we made this first field hockey team, and they're still playing. I can't make it to play, but now the team is playing. So this was another thing that we built in Seoul, and step by step, these kind of things were happening, and then through the TV shows, we were kind of introducing new culture. So multiculturalism was growing in Korea, in Seoul, specifically in Seoul, because this is the hub of all foreigners. Mm-hmm. So these were some of the contributions that I was making with the Seoul government, and then they kind of like some organizations in Seoul, and also the Pakistan embassy in Seoul recommended me to the Seoul government as an honorary citizen, and they kind of like, I don't know why they accepted, but they accepted me as one of the to be an honorary citizen, and yeah, that's how I got it, man.
Yeah, very cool. Congratulations on that. I think you well deserved.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. Yeah, like Seoul is my second home, and being an honorary citizen of the second home is something that I can't expect something more than that.
Very cool story. That's so inspirational for you. Where we started off with the story of you coming from that mud hut over there that you talk about in the Himalayas to moving to a country that is so foreign to you and immersing yourself and becoming an honorary citizen of a massive metropolis and cosmopolitan city. That's amazing. That is really, really cool. And that's kind of where the inspiration for me to bring you on the show was, because I really wanted to bring this story out. The last thing I wanted to chat about was you mentioned a lot about halal food. This keeps coming up. The availability of halal food and making Korea Muslim friendly. So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing for that.
As I said, like back in 2008, 2010, we there were not many shops, there were not many restaurants, but then as Korea developed, a lot of grocery shops of halal food. The halal food concept itself, Koreans now know what halal food is. Koreans now know what Islamic culture is. I go to universities, I go to different government institutions. Not only me, a lot of other Muslim people who are active in Korea, who love the Korean culture. They are also contributing in going around and telling people, about these different cultures, and the Korean people are knowing about it. Now, when they know about it, it's easy for you to establish like restaurants, and people want to try what is halal food. So restaurants could be like a good business, and that's how the things are getting better in Korea. And when I moved to Seoul, we used to walk all the way to Itaewon. I used to live in near Korea University. And at that time, we used to walk to Itaewon and hold the big bag of grocery, and the hands would get like really, really bad because of the shopping bags. Because when you're a student, you don't have enough money to take a taxi all the time when you go grocery. And then unfortunately in Korea, the international grocery is expensive. So as a student, I was having a hard time back then. So I had this pain somewhere in my head. And now when I have the resources, and when I was in a position that I could do something in that too, so that's why a friend of mine and I together founded the largest international grocery shop, online shop in Korea. And our main product is halal food. We wanted Muslims who are coming to Korea to get halal food very easily wherever they are in Korea. Even if you are in Jeju Island, Busan, wherever, we reach there within 24 hours if you order from our Shijang. That's what we call it. Shijang means market in Korean. It's a Korean word. So we just wrote it in English, shijang.com. And on shijang.com, so I just wanted the foreigners' life become a little bit easier. So we don't have only halal products. We have products from all over the world. We have a lot of 100 types of cheese from Europe. We have a lot of pastes and sauces from America. We have spaghetti, pasta, really cheap price pasta from Italy, and like things. We have products from Southeast Asia, but major product that I really wanted the Muslim people living in Korea to easily get is the halal food. We have halal meat, halal food, and everything on our and that is my main project that I did recently, and I'm too busy with that these days.
Now the question is, what I had the trouble in getting in Seoul, what I always wanted were some hot Cheetos from the U.S. You don't have that yet, do you?
We don't have it yet, but it's gonna be there soon. Now you told me, I'm gonna get it soon. For it.
I remember it was a hot commodity trying to find the one foreign store. And you're right, it is hard to find some of these foreign foods in Korea. And sometimes for the weirdest reason, when you are away from Korea, all you want is Korean food. You're like, oh man, I just want everything. You come to Korea and all you crave is just like food from back home, like Pop-Tarts and Cheetos and whatever you have from back home. And so I remember how hard of a struggle it is. And it's nice that you kind of took that pain point and you did something about it. You created your online grocery marketplace. And that's really fantastic. I think that's so cool to take initiative and start on that. So how was that, while we're wrapping things up, how was that experience starting a company in Korea?
Being a foreigner, it's still hard to start a company in Korea. But the good thing for me was because I have the F2 visa, which is the residence visa, not the permanent residence. The permanent residence is F5 visa, but the F2 visa is pretty similar to the permanent residence visa. So if you have that visa, there's not much trouble. It's just like a Korean opening a company in Korea, and it doesn't take much time. The process is easy. So we registered a startup and we partner up with, you might know, Foreign Food Mart in Itaewon, the big mart. So he's our partner, and we get all the supplies from them because they're importing from different countries already. So we didn't get into the import part yet because we want to build the marketplace first, and then once we have a good marketplace, then we might move into the import part ourselves too. So he's our partner, and that's what we ganged up together. And we established a company. Like establishing a company for F2 visa holders or F5 visa holders is comparatively easier than a D8 business visa guy or a student who is here studying. They have to show $100,000 capital, and it takes some time and stuff like that. But for me, because I have the F2 visa, it was easier for me. We don't need the capital. We just need an office and start from there.
And I'm so excited for this whole your adventure. I love when people start their own initiatives and their own businesses, and I'm going to follow it. And so if you do want to check out some international food, if you're living in Korea, shejang.com. Zahid, we're taking it. We're finishing things up here, and we at the end of our show have this tradition of our Travel Tribe toss-up. So I ask you 3 questions. Tell me what comes to mind. All right. So the first thing I thought of when I was preparing for the show is, if one person were to visit Pakistan for 1 week, what itinerary would you recommend for them, including places to visit and food to try?
I think my itinerary would be, I would suggest them to land in Islamabad and stay a day in Islamabad because it's the capital and it's a very cool and calm city. The reason why I want people to land in Islamabad is the first image of Pakistan would be changed because people will always think like a crowded Pakistan, like too many people, but Islamabad is a cooler place. So that's where you start, and then you grow a little bit slowly. And then my recommendation would be to drive from Islamabad or to fly from Islamabad to Lahore, because Lahore is the capital of our culture, is the capital of our history. So you can see the historical Pakistan, the old Pakistan. Lahore is a city where you can see old Pakistan, really, really old buildings, really old houses, too much crowd, because the population is huge. We have 220 million people in Pakistan. It's the 6th biggest population in the world. So we do have a lot of people in all the major cities. So from there you go to Lahore, and Lahore you try all the amazing food. There's so much like biryani, karai, so many food, man. So many food. Like you start from the morning, and I would say I would recommend for people who would like to travel to Pakistan one day, watch videos from YouTube like Drew Brusky, Eva Zubek, these travel bloggers, they're like, you know, doing a great job. And the history and culture center would be Lahore. And from Lahore, I would recommend you to go back to Islamabad, Rawalpindi, which is near Islamabad, and cross it, go to Taxila. Taxila is the center of Gandhara civilization. I don't know if you heard about Gandhara civilization. It was one of the major civilizations. You might have heard about Indus Valley civilization. That was also Pakistan. And we had a second civilization, which was Gandhara civilization. It was the Buddhism center in old ages. So Pakistan actually was the center of Buddhism a long time ago, historically. There's a relationship with Korea and Pakistan historically. Buddhism in Korea came from Pakistan. At that time, we didn't have Pakistan. It was Gandhara. So a monk from Gandhara came all the way to Korea, and he preached Buddhism in Korea. And today, Korea is so much strong in Buddhism. The beautiful culture, you know, like the beautiful, but like there's so much happening around in Buddhism. But in Pakistan, we only have the ruins of Buddhism. So, you know, like it moved to Korea. So that's where you can see a lot of old Buddhism heritage things, like, you know, like one of the first universities of the world was made in Taxila. It's a small city in Pakistan. And then from there, I would like them to go to Peshawar and some other parts called Sawabi. There also, it was also the part of Gandhara civilization. You will see so much of the Buddhism heritage, not only Buddhism, like Alexander and Buddha. We call it the place where Alexander and Buddhism meet. So you know, the European culture and Buddhism culture combined together, and you know, they made a fusion world, and so much to learn from there. You know, although they were totally different, Europe and Asian culture and European culture, but they lived together. They were, you know, they had a good civilization together. So where we can learn from them that even now, like, you know, we're fighting, we're doing so much, you know, like harm to each other, fighting for economy, fighting for territories, fighting for land. We can learn from those people if you go to those places, you know, from the heritages. So that's where I would recommend you to go. And then from there, you don't take a flight, take a car or a bus to the Karakoram Highway. The Karakoram Highway, Jordan, is one of the highest highways in the world. Mm-hmm. It connects Pakistan with China. That's the highway that I want people to go on a private car. On that way, you go to a place called Swat. Mm-hmm. Spend a day or a little bit in Swat. Swat is one of the places which was unfortunately hit bad by terrorism after 9/11, but now it's totally recovered, and it's a beautiful place. It's, you know, it used to be the place to stop over when European or American backpackers would travel to the Himalayas and walk through these mountains. They would you know, stay in Swat and smoke things that I cannot talk here, you know. They would go there and, you know, like have a day off from their walkings and from their hikings, and they would stay there in that part. It's a beautiful place, like fresh mountain streams, small mountains, like green mountains, so much, you know, like peace in there. So after that, I would love them to keep going up on the Karakoram Highway and go to my hometown, Gilgit-Baltistan. Gilgit-Baltistan, Jordan, is one of the places which is, I think, highly underrated all over the world. My hometown has so much to see. I'm not saying it's because it's my hometown. I have traveled to a few countries, but I think like it's a very unique place. You know, the people are so nice. People are so welcoming. You know, if you go to my hometown, people, when they see the foreigner coming, everybody would try to take you to their home. Mm-hmm. And they would say like, hey, come to our house and have a cup of tea. So have a cup of tea is a line that everybody would say to you in Pakistan, majorly, in like all over Pakistan. But in my hometown, they would say like, come to my house to have a cup of tea. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to be scared. In that part of the world, you know, things are really safe. Things are really under control. I mean, you can go to any house and sit with them, you know, see the family culture, have some food together. They would keep feeding you. Keep feeding with the dry fruits. Dry fruit, like in my hometown, we have a lot of fruits like apricots and almonds and walnuts. So we dry them up in summer and then we eat all year round. That's why people in my hometown live longer lives. It's famous that people go over 100 years or 120, 110. It's famous for living longer life because we drink the Himalayan water, the totally mineral. It's so mineral water. So we drink the Himalayan water and we eat organic food like dry fruits, vegetables that we grow in those mountains. So people live longer. That's what it's famous for. So you go to the Gilgit and go to Hunza. Hunza is one of the most famous valleys in the northern Pakistan. If you type it on Google, Hunza Valley, you will see it's so beautiful. And they like the community that lives in that small town, Hunza. They are so educated people. The literacy rate in Hunza is 100%. Jordan, wow. It's one of the most educated towns in Pakistan. So and then from Hunza you travel around to Hunza and go to the border of China and Pakistan. There's a place. There's a we call it a gateway from between China and Pakistan. It's the highest border in the world. It's one of the highest borders in the world. The highest open borders, not militarized borders. The highest open borders in the world. Go there and take some pictures. You know, you can cross into China for a bit and then come back, and then you keep going to. And then I would recommend you to go to Skardu. Skardu is the place where you can go to K2 mountain. There are lots of mountains in my part of the world where, Jordan, if you like mountains, you go to my hometown and ask the people, hey, which mountain do you think nobody went up to? There are lots of mountains nobody went up to. Jordan will go, and Jordan, you go up there and say, hey, I'm the first person in this mountain, and from today, I want this mountain to be named as Jordan. It will happen. There are so many mountains in that part of the world. Like we have out of the 14 8,000 meter high mountains in the world, 5 of them are in my hometown.
Wow.
Like K2, Nanga Parbat, Rakaposhi, Mashabrum 1 and Mashabrum 2. Like these 5 mountains are like the top 8,000 meters high mountains. We have only 14 mountains in the entire world, and five of them are in my hometown. And these places nobody knows. A lot of people don't know. And today on Travel Tribe, your channel, Jordan, I want the world to know that there are so much to see. There's so much to do, and above all, it's a very peaceful place. It's a very safe place. It's the people are really nice and friendly, and they would love to see you. They would take you as a blessing, as a guest, and you would love to spend some time over there. And you can hike a lot of mountains. And we have heli ski. If you want heli ski, come in winter and go heli ski. And there's another challenge for people who are mountaineers. K2 is the only mountain in the world which is not summited yet in winter. So if you want to do that, be the first person, go there and try K2 in winter. Nobody could do it yet. It's a big challenge for the world.
Wow.
So this and then from there, I want you to fly back. There's a flight of 40 minutes from my hometown to Islamabad. Fly back to Islamabad, take a day off and take it easy in Islamabad is a place where you just take it easy because it's a small town, and have some nice food on the top of the mountain. In Islamabad, there's a restaurant on the top of the mountain called Monal. It's a beautiful place. From there, you can see entire Islamabad, and that's how you close your 1 week.
Wow, my gosh! I think you need a job on the Pakistani tourism board. Oh my gosh, that was
yeah, man. You see, they should make me something in the tourism industry, right?
Yeah, what the heck? That was just like the best. I think I have to make that into a YouTube clip. It was just so amazing of how to go. All right, question number 2.
All right, sir.
What is the most embarrassing moment or any kind of cultural misunderstanding that you have had while in Korea?
So the funeral culture was different in Pakistan and in Korea. You know, in Pakistan, when you have a funeral, you just go there and just stay quiet and, you know, just flow with the masses. But in Korea, it was different. I didn't know. I expected like it would be same. but one of my friends, you know, his like he was my roommate when I was studying Korean language. He was a Korean guy, and his dad passed away all of a sudden, and then I had to go to the funeral. And I went there. I didn't know the Korean culture of like bowing and, you know, doing the things to the family and to the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dumb enough to not even, you know, Google it before I go there. And, you know, it was first time for me to go, and I went there and I didn't do. And the embarrassing part was not me not knowing it, but when I didn't know it, my friend was laughing. His dad passed away. He was laughing, and that embarrassed me so much. And he was just laughing at me. I was like, hey, dude, you got to teach me, not laugh at me. Yeah. And that was like so embarrassing for me in front of his family and some of the people over there. I can never forget this. I can never forget this embarrassing moment.
That's fantastic. All right, last question. What has been the most underrated destination you have been to?
Underrated destination I have been to. I think I've been to all the good rated destinations so far because I didn't have much time to travel, to be very honest. So I've been to a few places which were like good rated. But I would again say, Jordan, like I think my hometown is the most underrated place for traveling. I think there's so much to see. There's so much to do. If whenever I get a chance, I will definitely make some adventure activities in my hometown too, because we lack those kind of infrastructure so far. And you know, when one of the reasons that I want to be a politician is because I want to contribute in this kind of development, because I have seen so much in Korea and I've learned so much in Korea. Especially Koreans are doing so much. They're investing so much in tourism to bring people from all over the world. You know, everything is oriented, tourism oriented, to welcome people from all over the world. But Pakistani government is doing a great job. The current government is like, you know, the current prime minister is one of the most favorite prime ministers Pakistan ever had, and he's doing a great job to promote the Pakistani tourism, and you know, it's going really well. A lot of people have started coming to Pakistan, and the local tourism of Pakistan, because Pakistan is a huge country, 220 million people. You know, even if the local people start traveling here and there, I think the economy will have a good impact of the flow of money within the country. So, you know, but like my hometown doesn't have that much infrastructure. It is just natural. You know, everything is just natural. So if anybody wants to see nature in its original way, they should definitely come to my hometown. But of course, you know, if nature is combined together with some sort of adventure or some sort of, like, you know, like some activities, then people would come more, because they would see nature and also have some fun together. So these infrastructures we lack yet, and we are doing, but I see a lot of things that are happening now. So I want people from all over the world to please travel to my hometown. I think you will love it. And I always say, as you mentioned earlier, I think we should travel to such underrated places, because people in there are waiting for us.
Yeah.
They are waiting for us to learn some new things from us. When we go there, they will learn from us and they will develop too, and that will bring their standard of life higher too. And this is how we can also not only travel and have fun, but also contribute while we're traveling, you know. So I would invite everybody from all over the world who are listening to you, who will listen to this video while it stays on your page. Like, anybody who watched this video, come to Gilgit-Baltistan, come to Pakistan as a, like, overall, Pakistan is an amazing place. It's a beautiful culture. It's a beautiful country. There are a lot of places, so multicultural, so diverse. We have more than 30 different languages in Pakistan. It's so much diverse, and you will find people who look like Koreans. We have Mongolian background people. You will find people look like Europeans, because we have Greek background people. When Alexander came here, you know, some people were left over here, and then, you know, we have those. So we have like so much diversity in Pakistan, and you would love to see that diversity. You would love to see the crowd, and you would love to see some dust also, and the food is amazing. There's so much diverse food, and the mountains in Gilgit-Baltistan, in my hometown in northern Pakistan. and also in the Peshawar and Swat, these places, and Kashmir, the part of Kashmir that is in Pakistan is so beautiful, and the part of Kashmir in Pakistan is open for tourists. You can go and see that beautiful place. I think on the Indian side, the things are not going well, and the place is closed for tourists. But in Pakistan, it's very cool. So you can travel to all these beautiful places. So please come to Pakistan. We would welcome you with an open heart like this.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great way to wrap things up. Zahid, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. I love how we just started the show from the roots, from a small little Pakistani boy in his humble dwellings in the Himalayan life, and you've grown and you've transitioned, and you've shown how positive thinking and persistent hard work can really get you anywhere you want. You've become somewhat of a Korean idol over there on TV shows. You've been asked to be an honorary member of Seoul. You've been in the PyeongChang Olympics as a representative as well. It's really cool to see somebody with such drive and such motivation to bring cultures together, and who's reaching out for bigger things and trying to bring the world a little bit smaller and bring it together. So thank you so much for you being on a show. If people want to follow you or hear a little bit more about you and follow you as you progress and move forward, where can people find you?
Before I go there, I thank you, Jordan, for giving me this opportunity to talk about my story and talk about Korea and talk about Pakistan and talk about the things that I feel the world should be looking for and world should be doing. And like young people like yourself and me, we have this opportunity to contribute, and I think we should keep it up. And thank you so much for doing such an amazing show, Travel Tribe. Move around, travel, and learn and contribute. This is so great, and I think I'm looking forward to see much more and lot of good stories from your channel. And I'll be connected with your channel for good now. Mm-hmm. And one day we will be in Pakistan and shoot one special episode for your channel in Pakistan for sure one day. So thank you so much for having me here. I hope it was a good talk for our listeners too. But I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys learned a little bit from our conversation. Although we don't have much to teach you, but sometimes we learn new things. So thank you so much, everybody, to listen, and thank you, Jordan, for having me. If anybody wants to stay in touch, want to know about Korea, want to know about Pakistan, want to know about staying in Korea, want to know about having a job in Korea, want to know about starting a business in Korea, or want to know about the things that I'm doing in Korea. If you want anything, if you want to travel to Korea, I work as an ambassador for the Korea Tourism Organization. I can help you with information and things like that. So please contact me on Instagram. My Instagram is Zahid_PKKR. That's the SNS I use often, and you can follow me on Facebook also. You can join me on Facebook also, and my Facebook is, I think, Zahid Hussain, just my full name. But yeah, Instagram is Zahid _PKKR. That's where I make too much noises all the time, so you guys could be connected with me. But please give me messages on Instagram if you want to know anything about what we talked today. If you want to know more details, I would be happy to talk to you, and I would be happy to help anybody around.
Well, that does it for this week's episode of Travel Tribe Podcast. Join us each Tuesday as we release new episodes with great adventurers. Until then, remember, the most dangerous thing you can do in life is to play it safe. Stay adventurous.